I'm Jana, the little sister.
And I'm Jeff, her big brother. Welcome to Sibling Rivalry, a podcast about our favorite sport, baseball.
This week on Sibling Rivalry, we check in on our favorite teams and talk about more harebrained ideas.
And we look at a piece of memorabilia that sold for more than the player made in his whole career. No, it's not Josh Fields. Here are the latest SRBB headlines.
Korean baseball is making a hit in the U.S. An estimated 173,000 viewers watched the first game on ESPN with the first pitch at 12:55 a.m.
MLB to submit a proposal to the Players Union regarding plans for a 2020 season anytime now.
Teams playing in 3 divisions look to be the best bet for a return of baseball.
This year's MLB amateur draft will be held to just 5 rounds, down from the usual 40 rounds, making it the shortest draft in sports history.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
Time to check in on the Dodgers as we await the 2020 season.
It's been no secret to Dodger fans that Clayton Kershaw is not a fan of the Arizona bubble or really any plan that would take him away from his family for an extended period of time. But a new plan might be to his liking. Clayton Kershaw recently said, quote, that he's ready. I think that sounds great. I hope that's true, that we can start playing games. And I think the best part about the proposal that I heard was that they're trying to get us in our home ballpark so we could play at Dodger Stadium. And, obviously there wouldn't be fans for a while, but just to get to be in LA, I get to be at Dodger Stadium again and playing some baseball. That sounds awesome to me for sure, unquote. So
sounds awesome to us too.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe being in familiar confines of Dodger Stadium makes them feel a little bit comfortable. And then I'm sure that they have a house in LA that they would be able to stay at with his family. So it would be a better deal for him and probably for other players too, because that seems to be the big hiccup in this whole thing.
I think the familiar surroundings is a big key. Probably bigger though is just, he's made it no secret that he wants to be around his family. So having some sense of normalcy, which is playing baseball for him and being able to see his family short road trips, that is one thing. Probably if you ask the older players that have older kids, they're probably fine being gone longer or being in a bubble for a few months, but he's got little ones. And anybody who's seen Charlie knows that he's a character. He's probably fun to be around.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he's got to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, I would be in favor of any plan that gets Clayton Kershaw back on the mound. Stadium construction continues at Dodger Stadium. Construction has been deemed an essential business in California. So that construction is going a little bit slower, smaller crew, following CDC guidelines, but it's still happening. Originally, they were hoping to have everything done by opening day, March 26th, but a wrench into those plans, but they are continuing. So looks like people have flown some drones over the stadium, helicopters. It looks like the eating areas, the social areas behind center field that they're adding are coming along pretty good. They're adding more escalators, elevators, and also you will be able to walk around the entire stadium, which you've never been able to do before.
Nope. The home run seats that they've added into the outfield are all done. And then once they have it, then the front of the stadium, which is the outfield really when you're walking up from parking, if you've not been there, will become the show place. There'll be a center entrance. You're going to have the Jackie Robinson statue, which is now up on one of the upper entrances. Upper reserve entrance area will be moved down there. And then I think originally the plan was the Sandy Koufax statue was to be unveiled in June. I don't know if that's still the plan or if they'll just hold off until everything starts. But at some point you'll have those statues and any other statues they might decide to erect out there will be all out in this outfield area.
It'll be nice. addition to Dodger Stadium, third oldest ballpark in Major League Baseball. So Dave Roberts has been keeping busy on his Peloton and been talking to some podcasts. And he's gotten Dave Roberts is usually pretty even keel. I like Dave Roberts. There are times where he's made some decisions and shake my head, hand on my face kind of thing. But I like him. I think he's a good manager. But maybe quarantine is brought out a little bit of fire in him. He was recently on the Blev and Dugout Dudes podcast, and he said that anyone who would follow Don Mattingly as a Dodger manager was going to be considered a puppet. So he said it didn't matter what he does, if he does good, if he does bad, it's a
catch-22 for him.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, and I'll admit I'm one of those people that I've always taken the side that he's not making many of his own decisions. So I never fully blamed him. But
right.
then this last year, Friedman basically threw him under the bus and said, once the game starts, he's on his own, which then makes you question some of his moves. He's lucky on the offensive side of it is he's got such a stacked.
Right.
If somebody doesn't come through, it's not because it was a bad move or why did you put that 205 hitter in for Cody Bellinger. It's the guy just didn't come through. There's too many hitters. But when it comes to the pitching staff and especially the bullpen, he's made some, if he's the one making the decisions, he's made some questionable decisions. So it's not like stats haven't played a part in managers' decisions for as long as the game's been around.
Right, exactly. And he did say that whether he takes a pitcher out because he's not throwing well, people are going to say it's analytics. Whether he takes him out, he does well. It's always going to, if it goes bad, it's analytics. And then when he does stuff that goes against analytics, then it's always, well, he should have used analytics to make that decision. So yeah, catch-22 for Dave Roberts, but I like him. I think he's a good manager, good clubhouse. They have a good clubhouse, and I think the players respect him. So I think it's just part of the game as a manager.
So
you're always going to be second guessed. Yeah.
Is obviously, you're right. They're always going to get second guessed. And they've got a great team and have had. The question is it they're a player away? And we won't know, how Mookie Betts affects things until we get to an actual place, actual games. Or is he one of those guys who he's a great manager to a point, but he can't seem to push the team over that hump with his decisions?
That's a really good question. I think it's nothing to do with the players because, as we know, the Dodgers have a really good lineup. I think it might be that second part that I think he second guesses himself too on certain things. I mean, or things that are miscommunication too. I mean, you think about Rich Hill when he was pitching, and of course I can't think of what game it was when they were playing the was it when they were playing the Astros?
Yeah.
And Rich Hill was doing, he was doing well, got in a little bit of a jam, but was pitching well. Dave Roberts came out and Rich Hill handed him the ball. And it's like, what's going on? Well, then later we find out Dave Roberts is like, well, I was just coming out to talk to him. But Rich Hill was like, well, I knew he was going to come and take me out.
And that was based on a conversation they'd had. Yeah, they'd had a conversation before the inning, and Rich Hill had it in his head. When Dave comes out, that means he's coming to take me out. Dave at no point said, just hold on. And then they got to that point where it was like, well, what else am I going to do?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, well, he handed me the ball. We got to go with it. And then, Yeah, we know how the series ended. But I mean, of course, that one thing, wasn't the huge thing about that series, as we found out later. But yeah, I think some of it is just maybe those gut feelings. Maybe he would do something differently. But yeah, maybe in the back of his mind, he is thinking of the front office and what's going on.
I think that's it. There's too many things happening on either side. And just to correct both of us, the bad Dodger fans that we are right at this second,
Yes.
It was Game 4 versus the Red Sox.
That's right. See, I was thinking the Astros.
I was thinking the
Like,
Astros. I think we're thinking the Astros because that's all we think about is how much we hate the Astros. And
yes, it had to be the Astros.
Anything bad that really happened had to have happened during the Astros series.
Yeah, and exactly. And when I was saying it, I thought, is it the Astros? No, it was Red Sox. No, it has to be the Astros. Right. It just has to be. All right.
It's funny because you bring up Dave Roberts, and the Dodgers have been doing Zoom meetings.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've seen, because I've gone to the first Zoom meeting, I didn't make the second one. Dave Roberts drinking a big glass of wine.
Yeah. Maybe quarantine is getting to him. Yeah, those Zoom meetings. I was at the first one, didn't make the second. The third one had Mookie Betts, Gavin Lux, and Walker Buehler. So all of these Zoom parties, they're hosted by Joe Davis and Alana Rizzo, and they're just a lot of fun. They get you excited about baseball, keeps you connected with the players. It was fun to see. I think the first one you saw Kenley Jansen, and it was funny because Joe Davis asked him if he was at Foot Locker because he was in this closet with all these shoes.
I thought so, and then he had some kind of a logo.
Yeah,
like, I don't know because normally you would see something like that, you think, oh, wall art, but it didn't look like wall art. It looked like he was in a shoe store.
Yeah. So you get to see the players now, but then you also saw Ron Say, Steve Yeager, and then George Lopez was on there, Brad Paisley. So
I know on this last one that we missed, Cedric the Entertainer.
Yeah.
I'm with you. The one thing that I've liked about it is that you're seeing with the players, you're seeing their personalities that you don't normally see during the season. You may see a little bit here and there, but these guys you're seeing how they are just hanging out.
Right. We did learn on the first one, Will Smith, I guess he doesn't talk a lot. On Zoom parties, he still doesn't talk a lot. Justin Turner is in his last season of his 4-year contract. He's heading to free agency, whether we have a season or not. He was talking about that possibility. And he said, it's definitely something that I thought about a few times and don't want. Obviously, there's a possibility that there's no season, and my Dodger career could have ended last year in the playoffs, which would be tough. It would be sad to think about. That was in an interview with Jorge Castillo of the LA Times. And it is sad to think about. JT is the face of the Dodgers.
I went back and looked at Justin Turner's numbers. Drafted by the Orioles. The Orioles didn't hold on to him that long. He mostly played in their minor system. Got called up a couple times, but then optioned back. Traded to the Mets. The Mets sent him to Buffalo and played minor leagues, and then finally came up to play with the big club. And he was a second baseman, then he was a first baseman, then he was a third baseman. It wasn't until he comes to the Dodgers that he actually becomes a player that we know him to be now.
Right. Yeah, the face of the Dodgers.
Right. He really is. He's even though he's been there a small amount of time, really, when you think about it, he is become that person. And we talked about his wife's podcast the other day.
Yeah.
The Justin Turner Foundation is such a big part of the LA community that when you think Dodgers and you think about work out in the community, you think Justin Turner. He's out there doing everything. So him not being a Dodger.
Yeah, I think
it doesn't seem reasonable for either side.
Right. And I think that he'll get a contract with the Dodgers, whether it's 1 year or, whatever they come up with.
Well,
I mean, right now,
team friendly.
yeah.
He'll take a pay cut per se.
Oh, yeah.
To remain, because that's the kind. He's a team player and he wants to be there. Now,
Yeah,
as I
exactly.
mentioned before, I'm fine if the Dodgers don't pursue him, because even though he's not been around like Clayton Kershaw has, I think he has that status that he's earned the right for you to give him another couple of years.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
just a 1 year deal, but like a 2 or 3 year deal, at least a 2 year deal.
Oh.
He's going to be 36, pay him till he's 38, and then do like the Angels did with Albert Pujols, give him a team services contract afterwards, so he's an ambassador of the team. If not, Artie Moreno, are you listening? Justin Turner could come down and start playing first base for the Angels as Albert Pujols transitions out.
Could, but I think Justin looks so much better in blue than red.
I agree, and that's the one thing I said. But I'm this is a backup plan.
He's got to stay in the area. I really do think the Dodgers will sign him. Probably, more than a year is optimal. But right now, all of those type of transactions, any of those talks are frozen, so we can't. They can't talk about it. But I am sure that JT will be back this week in Dodger history. On Ladies' Night, May 11th, 1963, Sandy Koufax threw his second of 4 no-hitters of his career against the San Francisco Giants. The Dodgers beat the Giants 8-0.
Wow, that's like a double beating right there. Not only did you get no hit, but you got whacked 8-0. And on Ladies' Night.
That's right. Oh, what a night.
The Angels sit in a holding pattern, much like the rest of the league, but there are a few things happening in Halo Land. And one of those things happening is good news in that Griffin Canning continues to progress in his rehab. He's throwing bullpen sessions, and while there's no timetable for him, it's definitely a good sign that he and Shohei Ohtani will be back, and it will be like they had limited time and were baby through the year after their elbow issues.
Yeah.
It may actually work out. May work out for the Angels.
Yeah, with this extended time that obviously nobody wanted or wants, it does help those guys go a little bit slower where they don't feel like they have to rush. Because sometimes that happens too with ball players when they're injured. They really want to get back to playing and they think they're ready a little too soon, and then they can re-injure. So in this case, that's good news for the Angels.
Much like the Dodgers, the Angels have stadium things going on as well. The city of Anaheim sold Angel Stadium and the adjacent parking lots to Artie Moreno. Now coming up, sometime here in the next couple of weeks, it has to be submitted by the end of May. Artie Moreno is going to submit his proposal for use of the land. The thing that I'm least crazy about with all this, the greatest thing about going to Angel Stadium, unlike a lot of stadiums, is there's so much parking. It's just easy to get in. It's usually easy to get out.
Which is a plus.
Right. Now, there's talks about whether they're going to renovate the stadium or build a brand new one, which they could start doing on one area, still play in Anaheim State or in Angel Stadium while that's going on. And will they do that? Will they renovate? That's probably the biggest thing. After that, it'll be some housing. The city wants them to put in some affordable housing and park space. They're going to put in a hotel, probably other apartments and condos, retail, restaurants. What happens with the parking then?
Doesn't sound like you'll have a lot.
No. And then will there be a new stadium? That's going to be a huge thing too. If they build a brand new stadium, where are they going to build it on the lot?
Right. And Angel Stadium was built in 1966. So it is getting up there, I guess, in age.
We'll see what happens, a new stadium or renovations to Angel Stadium and what they do with that whole thing. It's going to become a more modern place, and it's to draw more people to that area. Whether they go to the games or not is one thing, but
Right. Yeah, it could be a whole experience, eat dinner at one of the restaurants, go to the game,
Right.
Do some shopping, I guess. But there's a lot of stadiums that kind of have that same type of feel, like where they try to bring in external things, like restaurants and people flock to them even if they're not going to the game. They go to that area because that's kind of like where everything's happening. Or
and they
even
can
just
show the game up on monitors outside that
right.
draws people in. And
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. And also with parking, something that Angel fans will like, because obviously they have enjoyed good parking and they'll want to continue. Because I have been stuck Dodger Stadium. One very memorable was Texas Rangers. And I didn't think we were ever going to get out of the parking lot. We sat there forever and finally made it. It can be tough.
well, once they start working on the stadium stuff, doing all the renovations for that area, whether they build a new one or not, the guy who could come and be the on-site, at least in the off season, could be the on-site foreman, would be Joe Madden.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Right now, it's perfect because right now he lives in Long Beach. Right now he's living in his RV while he's waiting for his house, which I think I read is supposed to be available sometime this week. But so he's been living in his RV about a mile from Queen Mary in the Long Beach Harbor, and living there, doing Zoom meetings with his coaches, with his players, doing meetings and appearances that were planned for he and his team to go do in person. He's doing them over Zoom and Skype and the other platforms, the video type platforms. And this is something that he's been doing since he was in Tampa Bay. He wasn't always able to go out and do that. So he started doing Skype meetings, having his players do it. So maybe they couldn't go to a certain place. They could still be out in the public. And he's pushed Major League Baseball to get more players, managers, team personnel out into the public, not only to push the game and to be ambassadors for the game, but to make sure that everybody knows that the connection between their city or their area and the team. He's been big on that.
He's a great ambassador everywhere he's been, Tampa Bay, Chicago, and he'll be great in Anaheim. Of course, he was there before, but as the manager, as the manager, it's even more of a premier. I don't know, that spot. Like there he is, Joe Madden.
Right, he's leading the charge now instead of any. Like the other day, I was watching they replayed all of the games that the Angels won in the 2002 playoffs, and watching, you could see him sitting there talking with Mike Scioscia or doing something on the bench or whatever. And it was like weird because he looks so young, he's different, but you forget, if you don't pay attention to those things, you forget how long and a big part he was of the Angels organization.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think most people, obviously he was the face of the Chicago Cubs. And so, yeah, you forget about him being with the Angels organization, but him coming back and now being the manager, perfect fit.
Yeah, he's doing cooking videos. He was doing something about crock pots the other day. He's constantly doing video type things and things to reach out. He's embraced this new technology, and it's helping him connect with and stay connected. He has a restaurant still in Tampa, and he connects with his chef so he can learn new things to cook himself.
Nice.
He can find out what's going on and how it's working, so that way he's got a better idea. Like I said, it's nothing new, the video conferencing. And then another thing is he's like a lot of players. We mentioned Justin Turner earlier, has the Justin Turner Foundation. Joe Madden has the Respect 90 Foundation. And just recently, they gave a $120,000 donation just for COVID-19 relief. $30,000 of that is going to the Women's Shelter of Long Beach to help them during this time. So it's still connected with coronavirus, but they're having a lot of times that victims of domestic violence and that it's even harder right now because people are stuck in places, they're sheltering in place.
Right.
The problem is they're not able to get to a safe shelter. They're stuck within their abusive area. So he's 30,000 of that 120 went to them to help that organization help those people in a better way. So Joe Madden is really reaching out and being part of his community, and he has for all of them. Very thankful to have Joe Madden here with the Angels. And while he's doing that and living out in an RV, Justin Upton has moved into the neighborhood with a lot of his other Angel players like Mike Trout, Albert Pujols, to name a couple. Justin Upton bought him a house down in Newport Beach, is now can be neighbors with his teammates. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've heard real estate is one of the busiest, businesses, I guess, right now, which seems kind of funny because we're all, stay at home, but people are buying homes right now.
Maybe living closer. I'm not sure where he was living before, but maybe living in Newport Beach being that area where a lot of the ball players flock to. A lot of ball players will go there in their off season. I believe Garrett Cole is from there.
Yeah, I think
he was from Huntington Beach, but he lived down there.
Yeah, and they can all carpool.
They could all get together, rent like a Pinto.
They could put the Angels logo on it.
There you go. I think Albert Pujols has like an Escort, old Ford Escort.
Oh, nice.
And then Jay Up and Trout and Pujols can hop in and they can paint it red and put the Angels logos on it. I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah. I think that's all that would fit in there is the three of them.
Trout might have to ride on the roof.
Yeah. It's a pretty small car.
That's it. And maybe that'll work because they'll probably have to push start it anyway.
True. Yep.
Now, one of the things that we've talked about and that is out there is service time. Not just we talked a lot about it with the minor leaguers. We talked about it with the players, how it'll affect things. One thing has been Anthony Rendon just signed. And the question is, do the Angels lose a year of Anthony Rendon if there's no season? Just like the Dodgers potentially don't ever get to see Mookie Betts play in a Dodger uniform. We look at those things and how this can affect that. I've also been thinking about, and I've thought about this since the beginning, right before all this happened, there was a trade that brought Mookie Betts to LA.
Yep.
Was also supposed to spur a trade that would send Ross Stripling and Jock Peterson to the Angels.
Yes.
Now, when all that happened, neither Jock nor Ross seemed happy about it. They didn't say a lot, but the little bit that we got from them, they were kind of unhappy because they liked being Dodgers. It says a lot about the Dodger organization that they wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Then, of course, it took forever because of all the back and forth between the Sox, the Dodgers, the Twins, and it became two separate deals between the Twins and the Dodgers and the Red Sox.
Right.
And in that, Artie Moreno got upset and said, no.
Yeah, got impatient.
You did completely. And I think while he made one good move in pursuing Anthony Rendon, his impatience, I feel, cost the team. Now, I'm like a lot of people that I'm fine with Jock Peterson being a Dodger. I was fine with Ross Stripling being a Dodger. But from my standpoint, for the Angels, they needed two guys. They're not superstars, but they're solid ball players, and we needed a couple of more solid pieces, especially pitching.
Yeah. Ross Stripling would have been a great addition to the Angels pitching staff. And Jock Peterson, in seasons past, I mean, he plays, but he doesn't play every day. He doesn't hit against
righties.
left hand. Yeah, righties. I'm being a really bad Dodger fan right now. But yeah, so he doesn't play all the time. But in Anaheim, he would have had that opportunity.
He would have anchored down right field. We wouldn't have had to rush or worried about when Joe Adell's going to make it up. He could platoon with Brian Goodwin. Ross Stripling, depending on how it went, could have been a number one pitcher, or at least number two, depending on what Andrew Haney does. We still have to see. We have another veteran, a real veteran in Julio Teheran. We have to see how he's going to do. Will he have just a solid season, or is he on his decline? Dylan Bundy, who we got from the Orioles, will the change in scenery help? So there's so many questions about this. Ross Stripling could have been a solid piece and a steady piece. Recently, even Ross Stripling started thinking about what could have been. As much as he is happy to be a Dodger and was happy when the trade fell through, he's looking at that he's not going to be a starter, at least not at the beginning. Julio Urias was placed in there in the starting rotation along with Alex Wood. He's left out as far as startings, and he wants to start. He could have been a starter in Anaheim.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah, Ross Stripling is one of those guys that he's been everywhere. He started, he's been in the bullpen, middle relief. He's just everywhere. As much as I love to see him in Dodger blue, I can also see for him career-wise going to Anaheim would have been a boost for him to start in a rotation.
The Angels made a huge mistake not following through with that trade. And I think it's a huge mistake if they don't see if they can still maybe get something going once everything opens up again.
That'd be interesting to see, if they do. And I think, too, we wanted to see him be successful. So I think being a true baseball fan, even though we all have our teams that we root for, and really it's about being excited for the player that, was on your team, and they go out and throw a no-hitter, or you're still excited for them. That kind of stuff where it's just baseball driven, not necessarily team driven, where you're just always rooting for that team and you don't see anything else going on in the league. So I think that's a big part of being a baseball fan, is seeing the good, the exciting going on anywhere, except for the Astros. I don't see anything exciting there.
Talked about different proposals to make the 2020 season a reality, including our own harebrained ideas like Survivor Ball, Thunderdome, Baseball on Mars.
Yeah, all great ideas, by the way.
I agree. At first, I didn't think so, but the more I think about it and the more I read and see other ideas, I don't think we're that far off base to make things happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think Survivor baseball really could be a thing. It could be the next big thing.
Be awesome. Bill Shaken of the LA Times got into the act as well. I don't know if he listened to the podcast and was inspired by Survivor Ball or Thunderdome or Mars.
I like to think so.
Yeah, I'd like to think so too. I did email him to see, but I haven't heard anything back. Anyway, in a recent article, Better Baseball on TV, what MLB can learn from Bachelor and Millionaire. Obviously, with all this downtime, it's given a lot of people time to think about, what could we do to baseball to make it more entertaining? And then, of course, there's usually that caveat, only for this season.
Right, only. Can only be
for this season. So part of it's like, why do we continue to bother with this if we're just going to have a circus of a season anyway? This is going to be like the Gong Show baseball season.
Yeah.
Then let's just do that. Let's stop with all this serious proposals.
I think that's another idea. The Gong Show. You could have a big gong, and then you have the judges, and they could go through Skype or Zoom or whatever. And they could judge on batting stance or running, whatever, any kind of style.
What did you think of that last swing?
Yeah, and if they don't like it and the player gets the gong, they're out.
Right. I like it. Out of the game or just out for that
No,
one
just
out?
an out. Yeah, just an out.
Ooh, I like that.
I mean, in the Astros, they would feel right at home
Right.
because it's a gong.
They'd actually think that that they knew what pitch was coming.
That's right.
They'd be like, "What do you mean I'm out?"
That was supposed to be a curveball.
Right. He reached out to, being here in LA, he reached out to some of the TV types, people like Mike Fleiss, who is the creator and producer of The Bachelor,
Yes.
and asked, what did he think?
He had one idea about miking up the players, which we've seen done, here and there. But since there aren't any fans, having some of the players mic'd up, that might be something, but I don't know.
Well, they've already been doing that to some extent. And maybe some of it, I'm not a big fan of like in-game interviews, except for during like the All-Star game. It was kind of entertaining when somebody was up to bat and they were talking to them. But in a real game that means something, that I don't like. But they could do that. And I think he also says directional mics in different places on the field. You'll be able to hear some of the chatter, some of the trash talk. I think they even talked about, there was an MLB.com article about biggest trash talkers per team.
Yes. Yeah.
We would actually get to hear some of that. That could be fun. I think you mentioned Battle of the Network Stars last week.
Yes.
It becomes something like that where you've got the teams kind of jawing back and forth. And obviously they'll have to have it on a delay because they're going to talk how they talk.
Motivational buzzwords.
Fun. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it could be fun. And it wouldn't really, wouldn't take away a lot, from the game, because it is something that has been done before, having like Dino Ebel has been mic'd up before, the third base coach for the Dodgers, or, that kind of thing. So it wouldn't be too far off from what has already been done before.
It could be entertaining and educational, because when Dino Ebel was mic'd up, you learned a lot about baseball.
Yeah, definitely.
He was very informative on what was going on, why he would do something, what he's looking for to decide to send a runner or what to do. It was riveting stuff, at least for me.
Yeah, no, it was interesting to listen to him. Now, the other thing that he talks about is, if you watch The Bachelor, I know in your household, The Bachelor is big. It's not so much in my household, but in your household, it's big. And it's the rose. That's like the big thing. Who's going to get the rose? And so the manager, his idea would be the manager, I guess, has a bucket of roses, or they have one rose, and they get to give, it could be like a wild card. And he could give the rose to the batter to come up and.
Well, yeah. So let's say that the Dodgers are up. Dave Roberts is sitting there. They're in it's in a tight situation in the game. Bases are loaded, and Gavin Lux is coming up. And Gavin's having a bad game. He's not hitting well. At that moment, Dave Roberts could give the rose to, say, Cody Bellinger if he's not on base.
Yeah.
Or to Max Muncy, or somebody that he knows can come through, somebody that's hot right at that moment, and they would come up and bat for him without it jeopardizing his place in the game already. Right. So basically bat out of order, if that's the case, by giving him the rose.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the rose, but I do like, I'm not that thing. I do like that he did say the ultimate rose is reinstating Pete Rose.
That was the one
thing. Who does need to be in the Hall of Fame. Yes.
I absolutely agreed with him on that. Another TV guy mentioned in the article is a guy named Scott Coffer. He's a writer and producer of TV, including being a producer of the sports agent comedy Arliss. Remember that with Robert Wool?
I do remember that. Yep.
So he was connected to that. He had, I think, of all the ideas in this article, I think he had the best couple of ideas, which One of them was the one fan sweepstakes.
Yeah. Be the one fan that gets to go into the stadium. Everything, the food is brought to you, have the whole experience. Kind
Sit
of like
wherever you
back.
want.
Yeah, sit wherever you want. And you get to be the designated fan, which I thought sounded pretty cool.
Right. You would be, when they put the attendance in the box score, it would just be one.
That would be so cool.
Attendance one, Jana.
Yeah, and you could set wherever. So you could set in the owner's box, you could set behind home plate, wherever, you always wanted to be. So.
And every inning, you could move to a new, set behind the dugout, set behind home plate. If you wanted to go to the top and sit in the upper deck, you could do that. You could sit out in the outfield hoping for a home run. In fact, you could figure it out. Oh, hey, the home run hitters are coming up in the bottom of this inning. I'm going to go sit in the outfield. And then when the 7th inning stretch comes, you would be encouraged to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
Yeah, you'd have to, you'd get picked up in a limo, but it was, which would be really cool. But then it was "Take Me Out to the Ball Game, take me out, I'm the crowd."
There you go. I like that. They'd have the food would be free for them. Probably other things. Give them, team gear.
Oh yeah.
From the home team, all of that. They're announced over the loudspeaker. They throw out the first pitch.
And now, would the first pitch be like the first pitch in the Korean baseball, where they had the kid in the bubble? Because that
right, and he walked in the bubble too. That would be awesome. I think that would be fun.
So so your name gets announced on the PA. It would be up on the board. So on the scoreboard.
I think the only thing that would be awkward, kiss cam.
Yeah. I maybe just not do that.
No, that could be funny though. He's also the one that brought up, I think, the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire side of things. Not so much the questions, but using the idea of lifelines.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you going to do in a certain situation? And there's the manager. We'll go with Joe Madden. And he's like, I'm going to go with a lifeline. And then you would have a survey, or a poll. And then it would come up and say, well, 39% say you should walk him, or, 50% say you should pitch, or whatever,
right.
It is.
Or you could phone a fan.
Oh, that would be so cool. But then you could end up being like Steve Bartman, because what if you really messed
let's
whole
hope that
game
it's
up?
not that big of a deal. But this would work for like Dave Roberts we were talking before.
Yeah.
He could go to that and then ignore it and still make a bad call. Should I bring in Kenley Jansen now, or Joe Kelly? Should I pinch hit for this player? Or, and this is one thing, because they just mentioned involving the fans, which I know is the biggest thing. This is the one thing they're doing. How's it exciting to get the fans all involved? And I get that. And people would be excited, even if you weren't a true baseball fan, to be the only fan at a game. People would sign up like crazy for that. And then they'd watch just because they'd want to see, what is that like? What do they get to do?
Yeah.
Imagine, they have those little things during the innings when you have to pick which you play all the games. What ball is the hat, and what hat is the ball under?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Do you get to do the thing? They always take a little kid and they run from like down the third base line, and they run and they pick up third base to steal a base and then bring it back. Do you do all of those things?
Maybe. You could
do you
all of those.
So you get the full stadium experience. Then with this, people signing up to phone a fan.
Mm-hmm.
So you could sign up for both.
Right.
And then if you don't get picked to be the fan, you can still be in the mix to be called for your advice. And then maybe they should take and go and get like some retired managers or baseball players. And it could be phone an expert, phone a fan.
Right. Yeah. That could be
Or take the
really
poll.
good.
Have an app for it,
Mm-hmm.
and then everybody just votes on their app. Those are things that if you're going to do these types of things. Now, obviously, the whole Lifeline thing, that's in our circus league year.
Yeah.
The fan thing, though, of winning to be the fan to come to the game, whether you're only one, or maybe they do like, hey, we're going to get 10 fans will be selected to come to this game, and you get to sit in different areas of the park, or you could sit all in the same area, but you're socially distanced.
Right.
That could be something that's workable that you could actually put into play. So you could still have some small fandom, but not the silliness of some of these other things, which are fun. Don't get me wrong. But if you're going to do this, Survivor Baseball, I think, beats them all.
I think that is the number one on the list is Survivor Baseball. And number two is Thunderdome.
How to do Survivor Baseball. We could do Survivor Baseball in Thunderdome and the Gong Show. We could incorporate all three together.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, if you're going to do it, go big, go home, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do it, you got to go all out. No, don't hold back.
The third person that Bill Shaken talked to and contributed to this article is a guy named Bob Mills. He is a senior vice president at ABC in charge of reality and late night programming. He had one idea that I was really fine with that does work, regardless of how the season plays out. If there's no fans, which we know there's not going to be, but if there's no fans, why not do holograms?
Yeah, holograms. I mean,
and then have people, you like you or I, we can donate money that goes to a charity to be in we've got the seat right behind home plate. And obviously it would cost, you and I, we probably could afford to sit out in the upper deck in the last seat in left field.
Probably, yeah.
And, or be like Bob Euchre's seat in the old Miller Lite commercials, obstructed view behind a pole somewhere with
That's
whatever.
Right.
But you could put people into those stands, and then all of the celebrities and the big money people could all donate the large parts of money and bigger sums of money and be there in the crowds. And then that way it looks like there's people there. Why not use that technology?
Yeah, because it's out there. I mean, they've had concerts with holograms, so why not?
Have a hologram of Harry Carey singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
Oh,
at
yeah,
Wrigley.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Gene Autry cheering on the Angels, and maybe do a hologram from him when he was younger singing "Back in the Saddle."
Yeah, that'd be perfect for opening game. Back in the Saddle. I like that.
That one I liked. A couple of the others he had were more like the problem with baseball is the length.
Yeah.
Standard baseball games around 3 hours, but when you look at it, NFL football games 3 hours, and that's time.
Yeah.
Basketball games are time. They can go on for that long as well. His idea was, and once again, if you're going to do it this way, if we're going to do baseball as a TV show, as a sideshow kind of thing, then you might as well do this, but put a time limit on it, and then it's only a 2-hour show. So it doesn't matter. You're not going to get how many innings. It doesn't matter how many innings you play. You're going to play 2 hours. So if you play 4 innings in 2 hours, the game's over.
Yeah.
And then we can address, like last week, ties and home run derbies.
Yeah.
But he wants something like that. So that way, and the one point he makes that I do agree with, you would have to manage differently. That player that you're holding off towards the end of the game to pinch hit, or a pitcher that you would bring in later in the game, you'd have to say, oh, we're only in the 4th inning, but I have 12 minutes left of the game. I need to go ahead and pinch hit Shohei Ohtani. I need to bring in Aroldis Chapman, or whoever, the big names, Kenley Jansen. I'm not going to let him sit on the bench all the time. and take a chance that I'm going to run out of time before. On that side of it, yeah, it opens up. It's a nice mental exercise of how you're
Mhm.
going to play the game and manage the game. But
Sure.
otherwise, that's the thing about this game.
When anybody starts talking about time or shortening the game, they just lose me at that point because I just like to think maybe they don't understand baseball.
And the final thing in this article, which I believe also went to Rob Mills, and this is something too that probably should be used not only on that particular platform, which is TikTok, but all social media platforms. I've never been on TikTok. I don't really have a clue overall. It seems like every time that I hear something about TikTok, somebody's doing a dance on it. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the whole purpose of it, is for the world to dance through TikTok.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's not a bad idea of having the players, especially connecting with younger fans.
Yeah, that was a good one to connect with the younger fans, get them watching, because that is one segment that we do really need to get in the ballparks and watching ball games is that the
Of course,
younger
maybe
fans.
if we put games on during the day, more access to games,
Yeah.
Saturday afternoon games, more daytime games, things like that make it more accessible. I remember when the Yankees and the Red Sox had a one-game playoff. I believe that was 1978. Mom came and got me out of school so I could go home and watch that game.
She was a great mom because she used to pick you up, I think, when you were all into General Hospital, too. So you could see Luke and Laura.
She did stuff like that. And yeah. So, but
Yeah.
baseball, when baseball was on like that, if there was day games, they let me stay up late. We lived in Virginia. And it was the 1974 World Series, Dodgers and A's. And they let me stay up late to watch the game. The one game I remember specifically, the Dodgers won. The Dodgers got beat in that series.
Yeah.
Dodgers went to the World Series a lot in the 70s. They just didn't win any. I just remember it being midnight in Hampton, Virginia, and me jumping up and down because the Dodgers won. I think that was the only game they won in the series. But they let me stay up to watch that. Mom got me out of school. I don't know a lot of parents that are doing that. And a lot of it doesn't matter. There is nothing for them to do because these games aren't on until night time anyway.
Yeah. And then they do have to go to bed or whatever. Yeah. We had in our household, we had good, our parents had priorities and they were good priorities. So it was work hard, watch baseball.
On our last episode, we announced the winner of the MLB The Show Players League. This week, we have another winner.
The Yankees beat the Reds in the Dream Bracket.
7-game series.
7-game series, and the Yankees came out on top in that 7th game. Going into the 7th game, it was tied up, and the Yankees beat Cincinnati 11-6. The Yankees offense was powered by Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, and Yogi Berra. They combined for 11 homers, 28 RBIs, and 68 total bases over the course of this series against the Reds. One of the biggest at-bats came in the 8th inning of Game 6 with New York down to its last 4 outs when DiMaggio cracked a go-ahead 2-run homer off of Aroldis Chapman.
It's crazy to think about it. The oldest franchise in baseball versus the most successful franchise in baseball history. The true heroes of Yankee baseball.
Yeah.
Even if you hate the Yankees, these are the names that we all hold in reverence.
Yes.
Every baseball fan. It's crazy. And the Reds weren't any slouches either. They had members of the Big Red Machine like Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Pete Rose, Frank Robinson was part of that team. I think one of the newer members of the team was like Joey Votto, one of the more recent. Tom Seaver was one of the pitchers. They were both really strong teams, but it's hard to beat Gehrig, Ruth, DiMaggio.
Yeah.
Mickey
It's hard
Mantle,
to beat those guys.
and Yogi Berra.
Yeah. If you missed this first dream bracket, it is coming back. So this week, MLB revealed the matchups, and it's going to be 64 of the greatest single season teams in Major League history. So this is going back. Before, it was a mixture of, Hall of Famers, MVP. So a little bit, old, new.
The best players in the history of a team.
Yeah, the best of the best. And now it's a single season team that is the greatest single seasons. Fans can get involved once again. You can pick teams at MLB.com for a chance to win prizes before the round of 64 begins the week of May 18th. And select games will stream on MLB.com and MLB Network's Twitch throughout the tournament. So something fun to do until baseball gets back.
We'll wrap things up this episode with just a basic question. What if in your life in your career, you only made about $160,000 total dollars, only to find out something that connected to you sold for roughly 4 times what you made over your lifetime?
Just recently, a Shoeless Joe Jackson baseball card from 1910 sold at auction for $492,000.
That'll wrap it up for this week's Sibling Rivalry Baseball podcast.
Remember, you can find us at our website, siblingrivalrybb.com, and on Facebook and Instagram at Sibling Rivalry BB.
As well as Twitter at Sibling Rivalry BB without the A. Email us, show@siblingrivalrybb.com.
Join us next week as we consider the effects of a lost season on players' careers,
including their pursuit of the Hall of Fame and other milestones. We also scraped together 69 cents to get a Topps Josh Fields card. Yeah!